Have you ever imagined being isolated in the woods, alone, trapped in a high tower all summer, no contact with anyone but a radio with one other person? Sounds terrifying, right? Well, to me, that was just perfect. I should explain that for the summer, I have a seasonal job as a fire lookout in Black Hills National Forest in South Dakota. Honestly, it is a great job, or at least I think it is. I make almost just as much as I do at my real job, and have near endless amounts of free time to do whatever I want. Of course, I do have to actually do my job, but that summer we had seen nearly no fires, and the ones we did were small and put out in the matter of days. I should explain that these jobs are not easy to get at all. The only reason I have mine is that my father held this job for 26 straight years, which meant that I spent a lot of my childhood summers out here in these woods, exploring with my younger brother or listening to ghost stories around the campfire with my family. It was amazing, and honestly, I am so thankful for that. However, my father passed away 2 years ago, and I've been taking the job during the summers ever since. But last summer, something happened to me, and I am honestly not sure that I want to go back. There were only about 2 weeks left in the summer before I went back home to Rapid City, and I remember stepping out on the balcony of my tower to look at the sunset. I was admiring the vibrant pink clouds against the striking blue sky when I heard the voice coming from my radio. I walked back inside and grabbed the radio. I put it up to my ear to hear Olivia on the other end. "Are you there? West Rock, are you there? This is Red Arch. Come in, West Rock." I pressed the button down to speak to her. "Hello, Red Arch. This is West Rock. I'm here." "Hi, Noah. Are you looking at the sunset right now? It's crazy." I heard from the other end. "I was looking at the sunset," I replied. "Oh, sorry. Haha," she responded. "Don't worry about it. I can see it fine from inside. Hey, while I have you, can you believe that there are only 2 weeks left before we go home?" I asked her. "Well, 2 weeks starting tomorrow," she answered. "But no, it still feels like summer just started, and now it's already ending. How many of your little paintings did you get done this year?" 14. Well, 15 if I finish this one in the next 2 weeks, but I don't know if I will," I answered. "Not your best year," she said. "Not my worst either," I responded. I carried the little handheld radio with me out onto the balcony where I stared again at the colors of the sunset. "Wow, that sunset is really something tonight." "I know, right? I wanted to make sure you didn't miss it," she replied. "I'm sitting in a single room surrounded by glass windows in all directions, so I don't think I would have missed it anyway, but thanks." We talked for a little more after that, but the only thing that I remember from that night is walking back out onto the balcony much later when the sunset had turned to nothing but hues of bright blue and the clouds were nothing but dark gray. That was always my favorite time of day, when it was late dusk and you could feel the crisp, cool air as you inhaled, and you could hear the weak breeze whispering through the trees. But that night, that late August night, I thought I noticed something strange. I wish I had just called it in that moment, but I convinced myself that it was nothing. In the seemingly endless field of pine trees outside my tower, I thought that I noticed a particular group of trees shifting a little, like something huge was walking through them, moving them aside. I was a little tired, so I rubbed my eyes, but it was still there. It's like they were moving out of something's way, or like they were being moved by something. I went back inside and picked up the radio to call Olivia again. But when I looked out at the spot where the pine trees were moving, it had stopped. I told myself I was just being crazy, and that I needed to get some sleep after a long day. I laid down, set my phone on the tabletop map in the middle of my place, and closed my eyes. It took me a while to fall asleep, partially because it was still early, and partially because I was honestly a little unnerved by the trees moving. I managed to make myself fall asleep. I remember I left one window partially opened just to let in some cool air during the night, but when I awoke, the wind coming through the window was unbelievable. Papers on my desk were blowing around, and it almost knocked down a cup of water off my bedside table. I got up quickly, walked across my room, listening to the creaking wood boards beneath my feet as I did so, and I grabbed onto the window to close it. It took an enormous amount of strength to close that window, surely because of the age of the building to my knowledge, but I practically had to jump into the air to finally shut it. I walked back over to my bed. I could still hear the strong winds against the windows, but I kinda liked that sound, so I ignored it. But I heard a shrill, sharp hollowing. I assumed it was because I wasn't able to shut the window all the way. I groaned and got back out of bed to walk over and close it all the way. But when I looked at the window against the screen, it had closed all the way. I even locked the window just to confirm that it was closed. But I kept hearing it. That howl, like the wind screaming through the window screen. But I had no other windows open. I looked around at each one just to confirm they were closed, but the howling persisted. I put my ear up to one of the cold glass windows to listen outside, and that's when I realized it. The howling wasn't coming from inside my room. No, it was coming from outside and staying outside. I grabbed the golden door handle leading to my balcony, and I hesitantly turned it to step outside. The wind immediately hit me, and I had to stabilize myself just so I didn't fall over. But as I stood near the edge of the balcony, hands on the railing, I heard it, the howling. I listened and looked all over to try and find the source, but I couldn't find it. I thought to myself that it had to just be the wind, but I have never heard the wind howl so shrill and high-pitched. I looked out at the forest again and realized it. I saw it again. The trees were shifting and moving again, but this time it seemed more rushed and violent than before. They were moving in a linear path like they were being moved by something. I also noticed that the path was coming towards me. The shifting trees were headed for my tower. I wanted to go back inside, but I couldn't now. Of course I couldn't. I needed to see whatever was happening. It was getting closer and closer. Braced myself for whatever it was to hit me. My heart rate increased and I began to breathe rapidly out of sheer anxiety for whatever was about to happen. It just kept getting close. I began counting down the seconds until it hit me. 5. I'll be safe in the tower. It's at least 40 feet tall. 4. It is a very old building though. I don't know how much it can withstand. 3. I should just go back inside and forget all this. 2. No. I need to see whatever is happening so I can call it in. 1. It's here. It was there. The wind stopped dead. The air in the night was silent. The howling had become absent. Standing at the edge of the clearing around my tower, shrouded in the showers from the pine trees, was some sort of creature. Extremely pale, human-looking skin, draped all over its body, but it walked unnaturally on all fours, and its neck was bent upwards almost. It looked like it was walking on stilts. The thing was at least 20 feet tall, standing on all fours. I froze. For a second, I didn't know what to do. My mind was blank of anything but questions. What was this thing? How was this even possible? Finally, my mind began to race as I began to think. I quickly ran back into my room, behind the safety of the walls and the windows. But as soon as I did, the creature started howling, or more accurately screaming. It was ear-piercingly loud. I cupped my hands over my ears and fell to the floor. I crawled carefully over to my gun safe and, still shielding my ears best I could, as I entered the 6-digit code into my keypad. It unlocked, and I swung the door open to take out the small silver revolver I bought last summer. I loaded 6 bullets into it and prepared to step back out onto the balcony to look back at the creature. Before I stepped out, I grabbed the standard issue flare gun that we got at the beginning of every year. I tucked that into my pocket and stepped back out onto the balcony. When I did, the thing was gone. I didn't see it anymore, and the howling had stopped. I took a deep breath and looked over the edge. As soon as I did, a long, fleshy arm-like limb of the creature's hit me and knocked me back against the wall. I dropped a revolver and it went tumbling over the edge of the balcony, falling to the creature below. The creature screeched again, much louder and higher pitched than before. I grabbed the flare gun out of my pocket and pointed it over the railing. I saw its head, its face. It had 2 eyes, an almost human-like face, just scarred and scratched, and it had an ungodly number of teeth. Before it could move again, I pulled the trigger and the glowing red flare shot out of the gun and hit the creature dead center in the face. It screamed again, an ear-shattering scream, louder than anything I'd ever heard in my life. But I watched as it ran back into the trees outside the clearing. I ran back inside and locked the door. I slouched down onto the floor and tried to slow my breathing. I don't think I moved from that one spot the entire night, and I refused to look out any of the windows. I just sat, clutching the now empty flare gun in my hands, trying to calm myself. The next day I radioed in for an early departure, and I was gone before sunset. I talked to Olivia one last time, told her some fake story about my cousin being sick and I needed to go see him. But I didn't look back as that helicopter took me away. I didn't look back for a second. I debated what I should do about it. Should I go to the police? Should I tell Olivia? Ultimately, I decided not to do either. Partially because I didn't want to be known as that crazy guy, and mostly because, what are they going to do? They aren't going to believe me, and even if they did, what would they do? Olivia also told me she's not going back next summer for unrelated reasons, so at least I don't have to worry about that. But I don't know if I am going to go back either. My father held that job for 26 years, and I only held it for 3 summers. But I know that he would rather me be safe and happy than hold some stupid job as a fire lookout. To this day, I still cannot look. Can't even think about the forest without hearing the howling of that thing. And honestly, I don't think I'll ever forget it. Shout out to my superfans, Sweet Black Swan and Tacy. I really appreciate you guys supporting my channel, and I look forward to creating more content for everyone.